I'm here in my fairly shady nook. I don't think I can stay here for too long. It is really very warm today, but I'm having my coffee and an energy ball thing that I made, and I'm in the front garden, which I have just freshly, well, I don't know whether you'd call it tidied, but definitely sorted and deadheaded all the roses, which is really encouraging them. So when I've had my coffee, I shall show you what I've been doing while it's still looking nice, basically, but I'm really pleased with it. So it's in between seasons a little bit in terms of the flowers, because it has been planned to have interest from both me and for the wildlife all year round, but the roses have, well, they're very much past their best now, and the other flowers like the heleniums aren't out, and the veronicastrum aren't out yet, but you can see where they're going to be, and I think there's plenty to look at, so we'll have a look in a moment. That nook was definitely not shady enough, so I've moved into the proper shade. I don't normally sit looking in this direction out of the garden gate, but you know, it makes a change. It's quite nice to get a different perspective. Let's start this tour from the garden gate, as I usually do. So I've come back outside, and when you look through, the main thing you see is it's mostly green now rather than flower coloured, as I was just saying, and the roses here have finished and I've deadheaded them, but there are some new buds which I'll show you here. So I'm hopeful that having cut everything back and watered it, that the new flowers will soon come out. And talking of new flowers, these Japanese anemones, which are late summer flowers, are in bud now. So that's going to be absolutely lovely when they come out, because there are some, I think, in every part of the garden. And these Sanguiscorba have come out as well. They're quite late coming out. I mean, you know, they are naturally late, so they're just coming out now. So it's going to be really colourful again. The fennel is getting really tall, which is lovely. That is just such a lovely feathery presence in the garden. And the willow I have tied, now not very expertly I have to say, but it is tied into an arch now in its own way, so you do walk through it to get in. I'm sure it needs a little bit of attention as to how that should be done, but you know, it's working in a practical sense for now. The new dawn rose, which I've got one each side of the door, and it's really noticeable, I've said this before, but one side is doing so much better than the other. I don't really know why, because they're both bought and put in at the same time, but they are both flowering really nicely, and I've deadheaded them both, and that was only the day before yesterday, and they're actually the flowers are definitely coming out again now, so that was really worth doing. The dogwood, which I cut back a little bit where it was in the way, well, not in the way, you know what I mean, it was like impeding getting to the little step that I sit on, and that has got berries on now, white berries, which I think, I don't know whether the wildlife will like those berries, but I think so. I think they are good for wildlife. I shall have to look that up. And then we've got more of the Sanguiscorba here, and this is where the veronicastrum will come out. These little spires here, they're like a pale pink spire, so they will be lovely when they come out. And there are some of those, I think, in at least 3 of the parts of the I think of the garden in 4 quarters. So it's like, yeah, I tried to put something the same in each one, but I don't think they've all, you know, equally been happy. So some of them have, some of the segments are sunnier and some are less sunny, which is probably why, you know, some of the things have thrived better than others. What else can we look at? So this is where I actually ended up sitting, because it was shadier, and the Alchemilla mollis, the lady's mantle, is still flowering. And the cover on the fence is really nice. It was absolutely full of flower until recently, but they just all went over at the same time, and where I've been able to reach them I've deadheaded, but I don't think they flower again. I don't think Paul's Himalayan musk is a, you know, repeat flower. It's an old variety, but it's absolutely beautiful while it is flowering, and I imagine there'll be hips later. And the wayfaring tree is still doing really well. I think that really likes it here. That's this leaf you can see in front of us here. And the crabapple tree has grown really tall, although it didn't have any flowers on it, I don't think. So I don't think it can have any crab apples. And I can't see any, but you know, at least it's happy there. And then we come to the shadier areas here. The pond has been, well, the pond you can't see, it's down there under the vegetation. I watered yesterday, so I did fill it right up, but you really can't, yeah, you can't see the water really. It's so full of plants at the moment. But this here is water mint, so that's nice when you, oh yeah, it is when you rub against it. And these were beautiful yellow flag irises, even though they're yellow, and they didn't really go with my colour scheme, which tends to be pinks and bronzes and a little bit of purple. But you know, hey ho, it's not really, it's not only out for a little while, and it's so beautiful. I'm not going to be too fussy. So a lot of the geraniums are still out, the hardy geraniums, but you can see in the background here. And the hazel trees, I've got 2 hazels and they're both really happy, which is good. Obviously it's not colour, but they are, it's lovely to see the leaves looking so healthy, and some more of the Japanese anemones here. So they're lovely in the winter as well, because the heads stay on, and then they're good for overwintering insects, but also they just look really nice in the winter to have something that's still sculptural. There's lots of black berries at the top of the hedge. I don't know whether they'll, well, flowers, and you can see they're really busy with pollinators. I mean, really busy. Really busy. So that's a delight to see. I don't know whether I'll get any blackberries myself because they're really high up, but you know, if they're encouraging the pollinators like this, there's what's not to like. Really lovely. And we've also had a lovely geranium down here, but when I did my cutting back day before yesterday, I cut it all right down, even though it was flowering, because it displayed right out, and I suppose in the dry and whatever. And I think if you do that, you can already see little leaves coming back. I think you'll get a second flush of flowers, so that's the hope anyway. And there's will be more of the veronicastrum, and it's interesting how they're not as far advanced as on the other side because it's shadier, so you really see how it makes a difference. Really does make a difference. Other flowers have finished. Bird bath is still very popular with the sparrows, which I refilled, and the Aquilegia the flowers finished quite a long time ago, but again the seed heads are so lovely, and I also want to save some seeds to sow again, because there are all sorts of different ones really in the garden, so it's really nice to have a variety of them and see what comes up, because you never can tell what will come up. And we're coming almost back to the beginning again. I think we'll just come around part through the willow. This is the other hazel tree, which is also really happy. It's lovely to see it so happy as this. I don't know quite what it is about the garden that it likes, but it really does. And then there's the ice plant, which is another late summer flower, and you can see that's in bud as well. So there's going to be, and that's good for insects as well. And that's pink, so it'll kind of go in with my scheme. And I think we've gone around the whole garden now, so I might have missed something out, but you know, you'll get the idea of how it is here in early July, and we'll come back again and have a look when some more of those flowers are out. And the heleniums I didn't mention because they're not anywhere near out yet, but they are beautiful bronze flowers, so we'll see them before too long, hopefully. I've been quite busy making these hearths, and I thought I'd just show you them and tell you a little bit about them, because this is something, well, years ago now I used to do. I developed this idea, and I used to make these quite a lot actually. And what they are, I mean, they're always different, but they're what I used to call a hearth travelling hearth or portable altar, and I called it that because you could unroll it wherever you are and it would become like a hearth, like a focus wherever you were sitting. I made it the same size as the top of my drum. I used that for a template. So if you had a drum, you could lay it out on that, for example, to keep it off the ground, or just on the ground, or on a tree stump, or just use it at home. You know, lots of ideas. And they were all different. I had different ideas for them. They've been stenciled and painted and printed with fabric paint that you heat set afterwards. And I made them so they're washable as well, because if you're going to have something outside, it's got to be washable, really. What they always had was a significant number of elements in them. So in the middle, I will show you them individually in a minute. In the middle they have a circle, and that's where you could put a candle, or you could put a nightlight, or you could put just an object which is a focus for you. Maybe if you were out in the woods, you'd find something and put it in the middle, something, a beautiful flint or something like that, or a beautiful conker. I don't know, depends on the time of year and what your focus was. And round the edge they have a certain number of, and I've always, this, whatever they have here, I always print direct from nature, which is always very, very scary. I've done yew fronds for a kind of northern tradition type of one with yew and wolf prints and runes and things. I've done oak leaves, I've done birch leaves. This one, I've done other things as well actually. I've done ivy leaves, but this one was connected with the heath, as I'll tell you shortly exactly what they're about. And so I used fronds, bracken fronds, and I did something really silly, but thankfully it paid off. It was all right. Really, the idea would be, this is the thing that could go very wrong, because if you position it wrongly, I print it and I lay a piece of paper and I kind of hold it down hard until it's I feel it's transferred, and then I lift up the frond or the leaf or whatever it is. And you would do it first, really, or you do the circle, and then you do that before you start fiddling around with the edges, because they take a long time as well, and they are not so likely to go wrong as something printed direct. Anyway, going around from there on these particular ones, and on quite a few of the ones I've done before as well, they have 4 pairs of roe deer antler, and I made the original stencil for this by drawing around a little piece of roe deer antler that I have. So that's quite come from life in a way. And those 4, well, I didn't say what these could represent. In this case, I've done 8, and quite often I do 8, and I think of the 8 festivals around the wheel of the year. So you might place something different on each one for each festival, or you might put a rune on each one, or you might be out in the woods, or I keep saying woods or heath or beach or wherever it might be, and you might collect a little object for each one which represents that time of year for you. You know, there's lots of ways they could be used. And the 4 pairs of antlers, I think of any set of 4 that open outwards, like the 4 directions or the 4 elements. And people who work with magic circles might have 4 different guardians. There's all sorts of instances of 4, you know, where things going in the 4 directions are important. So that's why I've done it that way. And again, you could put something like a card, a tarot card, or oracle or something at each of those around the circle. And around the edge, again, these vary from time to time depending on why I'm doing it. They often have 13 though, and this has got 13 rabbit footprints, which again I took from a book of animal tracks. So they're quite true to life in a way. So they're front feet with four little indentations. And the reason I chose rabbit feet is because these are actually Heath hearths, which is quite difficult to say. And I've never used, this is something completely new, the rabbit feet. And that's because these hearths are for people who are my founding members of my Substack. So Substack is the platform on which I do a newsletter twice a month. Well, for the free version is twice a month, like every new moon, every full moon. It's like a magazine, but I'm not going to talk about that here and now because This would be too long, and all I'm doing is focusing on these hearths. So just to say that although it's free, there is a paid option because I'm trying to support myself more with my writing, hopefully now. So it's starting in a really tiny way there. But also, there's also a Substack offer an option called Founding Member, where people can pay more, but it's like a true foundation, if you like, of the work. I really wanted to give a huge thank you, so I offered a hearth that I would make that was specifically for them, and it's never been made before. It's completely exclusive. So I had to think of something different, and that's where the rabbit feet came in. So they had an option for bracken or rack, so connected with the heath or connected with the seashore. And the ones I'm making here are, as you can see, bracken. So they are heath related. And as soon as I'd made them and took them out onto the heath last night to bless under the full moon, a rabbit ran across into the gorse bushes. And I like the idea of lucky 13 or unlucky 13, and then rabbit feet are said to be lucky. And there's also a gypsy connection because of my work I've done before on the heath, which you might have seen in a previous video or videos, which was connected with the Lady Day Fair on the heath. But that's another story for another day. But anyway, I felt that there was a connection with the rabbit feet. And beyond that, they're all different because I would always like to make every individual item different as well. So not only are they different colours, they've all got a different colourway, the actual paint has, and they've got different backs and fronts and everything. This one is green, as you can see, with brown back. This one's brown again, but it's got a kind of linen back, and the colourway on each of them, as I'll show you individually in a minute, is different. So I haven't repeated the actual elements at all. But around the edges, I decided to let the actual hearth itself speak to me as to what it would like. And so they are all different as well. They all have 28 little beads. These are check glass pressed beads around the edge, because that's for the lunar days in the lunar month. So that's something I always do as well. They always have 28 of whatever it is around the edge, because you could then use that as a sort of counting, almost like prayer beads. You could run them around your fingers to count the lunar days of the month, or you could again place little objects next to them, or they're just there. So there's lots of things you could do, or you could just have them as decorative element. And on this one, I decided just to use two different colours of the glass leaves, and they're the colours of the bracken as it dies back in the autumn. So it's that kind of beautiful bronzy brackeny colour. There's a brown, and there's more of an ambery colour, but they very much remind me of that time of year, and a lot of the year. In fact, the heath is that colour underfoot. It still is in places, because the bracken takes a long time in the year to regrow again, although now it's mostly at full height. So that's that one. And then we come on to this next one, the green one here. With this one, I decided to use little glass, amber coloured glass beads around the edge, and these are the same as each other until you come to just random places where I've put on that this is an actual pure amber bead, not just amber coloured. And then as you keep going around, I might just move it around like this so you can see. You come to more amber. There's another amber bead here, and there's another different thing here, and that's a little leaf, a little check glass pressed leaf. And then if you keep going round, you eventually come to another amber bead, but there's another one there. So this is the other one, and this is again different colours again, but again I've printed the bracken, very daredevil painting or printing from the bracken fronds themselves. And this one's got different beads around the edge as well, 28 again, but they are little iridescent amethyst colour, I suppose, very pale amethyst colour beads, and I wanted them to look like the drops of dew that you get on the heath, on the heather and on the gorse, and on the grasses. But it's very, very much, especially in August, September time, you start to get a lot more of this kind of colour coming through. And what I did here was again, and I didn't know beforehand what I was going to do, but it seems to want this, is I've used some, you can use some leaves, but I've used leaves with the dew on them, and there are 3 of them around the edge. There are 3 leaves. So, and there's these beads, although they all look the same to the casual eye, there are actually 2 different kinds as well. So one kind which is more iridescent than the other, and one which is rounder and more pearly. And then every so often you'll come to another here. You'll come to another leaf one, and there's 3 of them for a magical 3. Again, it could be used for any purpose. I had nothing in mind with the edges in terms of the way I've distributed the beads, but it's what came to me. So I'd be really interested to hear what their owners decide is their meaning for them. And the other last little thing which I'm focusing on here, and realise I haven't told you, is in the middle of each one there's a golden spiral in thread, just hand stitched, and that holds the layers together with the lining. But also it represents the golden thread of life force running through everything, and the growth, and also the gold of the gorse, which is the path that snakes over the heath. So they've all got a goldenly colour embroidery in the middle. And that's it. So today I'm going to be packing them up. Last night I blessed them under the full moon, as you saw in the earlier bit of video. And so they're all ready to pack up and send to their new homes. Yes, I hope you enjoyed seeing those. As I have spent a little while doing it, I thought, well, I will show you what I've been up to, as well as the other things that have been going on around the old shop.